Joining us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, PGA analyst for DraftKings. The Memorial's going on. I got Tony Finau and Jon Rahm near the top of the leaderboard. But Tiger Woods might miss the cut. So what the heck do you do with a DraftKings lineup then? What if you want to make some extra money this weekend? You can't set a DraftKings lineup if you don't know who to actually plug in and get the most out of it from. And that's where Reid Fowler joins us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Reid, how you doing today?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing well. So I think the biggest thing right now, as I said, is there's a good possibility that Tiger Woods doesn't make the cut here. So, how much of an impact could that have, not just on the tournament and people's interest, but in terms of how people build their DraftKings lineups?
Yeah, so right now, when looking at the leaderboard and the cut line, I have my models coming out at +3 actually being the cut line if all things stay the same. Now, how it works, right, is the top 65 and ties make it to the weekend, so things have to stay steady. So fingers crossed that TW does make it through to the weekend. But Brooks Koepka, another guy that was playing in his group, also double bogeyed his last hole, so he's also at +3. If people want to make a lineup on DraftKings without Tiger Woods, like you were able to do it, when he wasn't playing, which I get, right? That Tiger Woods is such a pull for the game of golf. But if you look at what he was doing in his second round, he just wasn't making any putts. He wasn't putting it in the fairway, which is what we saw him when he was playing with Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson. The guy was an absolute stripe show. He just wasn't doing that on Sunday. We know, though, when Tiger Woods needs to make a move on Saturday, a moving day, it's fantastic. So I completely get it. If he makes the cut, he's going to be a popular play. He's right at that $9,000 price tag right now if you're doing the Saturday showdown. But there's guys around him that I really like. Victor Hovland shot a 30 in the front nine. He's still out there right now, and he's absolutely scorching this course. We saw what he did last week at the same course, a little bit different conditions. But right now, he's number one in strokes gained tee to green over his last 3 tournaments, and now coming in, he's playing fantastic. And Jon Rahm, I wouldn't count Jon Rahm out of this at all. He's right there, just one back from both Tony Finau and Ryan Palmer. He looks really good. This is a Jon Rahm that we're used to seeing. Really good off the tee, these high, soft approach shots, and making his putts. And so as long as the guy's, keeps his emotions, at equilibrium, because what makes him such a great player is that those highs come, and he's fantastic. So as long as he keeps that at bay, I think Jon Rahm is a solid play as well.
What about DeChambeau? He's definitely been making some noise lately.
Yeah, DeChambeau, I like him at 10-4. So if I'm looking at the Saturday Showdown contest on DraftKings right now, and DeChambeau comes in as the most expensive player, and I don't mind it at all. Now is the time, right, to look at some of these guys and saying, well, Bryson DeChambeau, look, his score is not necessarily there yet. He's tied for 30th, I think, right now, or he's not necessarily near the top, which is where we're used to seeing Bryson over the last couple of tournaments. But this is the type of time that you want to go after these type of players, because we know that the game is there. We know that this course is difficult, and if you get in the wrong spots on certain holes, it introduces bogey, double bogey. But if you look at a scorecard and you see 1 double bogey and then 16 pars and a birdie and he's +1, you think, okay, he had that one mistake and that's it. Bryson DeChambeau, you kind of heard it if you're watching him on PGA Tour Live, is that he just hasn't had his wedges dialed in, but he's still striking it fantastically. He's the type of player that, like Victor Hovland, if he gets a hot 1-2 type of holes and he gets birdie on those holes, he can rattle off 5 or 6. So I would Bryson making the cut. If he does, I would absolutely go look at rostering Bryson and then bring it back with guys like Danny Willett, Sebastian Munoz down at the $6,000 range who are hitting the ball fantastic and should make the cut coming into this week.
Reid, how is the course played that has impacted some of these scores so dramatically here in round 2? Is there something specific about the course, or is something specific about the environment that's causing some of the shift from round 1 to round 2?
Yeah, well, this course usually plays tougher, not just on the back 9, so holes 10 through 18, but even if you're looking at the splits from morning to afternoon, the course just gets harder. It dries out, the greens get harder, the fairways get harder for the balls to stop and not roll into the rough. And if you look at the rough around the greens, it's extremely thick. So if you're on a side hill lie, if you don't get the perfect, these guys don't need a perfect lie, but if you don't have everything set and you're kind of struggling, to find the greens. These are some of the smallest greens on tour. It's going to be extremely difficult to get up and down. That's why guys like Bryson DeChambeau, who hits it 380 yards, if he's coming in with a lob wedge, sand wedge, more times than not where you can get spin on that ball and keep it on the green and just save par, those guys I'm going to look after, because what this course is doing right now, what we're seeing is that once these guys don't hit into fairways and they get into that rough, especially around the green, it's going to be a tough go where you introduce that bogey and or double bogey. And that's really the difference when you're looking at this, where these guys who aren't near the top, they're getting double bogeys and bogeys at a way higher clip than the guys who are at minus, like Tony Finau and John Rahm.
Jason Day is sitting at even right now, and he's definitely a player that can turn it on and be very special. What do you think about Jason Day?
Yeah, Jason Day has always been a player, like we know, right, especially at this course. It's like a home field advantage for Jason Day. What scares me always with Jason Day is that, and it's a catch-22. His putter he's such a good putter that it can save him a lot of strokes, and it can mask what he's doing with his irons and off the tee. So his ball striking through this round specifically, he ranked 70th in ball striking, which includes his strokes gained approach and his off the tee numbers. So right now he ranks 70th in the field, and if for whatever reason, if he reaches that back nine, or if he reaches a certain stretch where this putter is not falling and those putts aren't falling like they usually are, then that can really turn for the worse. Because right now, Jason Day, who's been for the most part of his career a fantastic player, at once the number one player in the world, he hasn't found his ball striking, his irons just yet, and that scares me a little bit. He should be safe though, like all things considered, because he's a pretty consistent player. Unless we get one of these blow-up holes from J Day, he should be pretty safe to make the weekend. But that's what kind of scares me for his upside, is that putting can always save him. And that ball striking, if it's not there and if the putting isn't there, then he's going to go the wrong way in the leaderboard.
Reid Fowler joining us here on the Boardwalk on the Hotline on 97.3 ESPN, PGA analyst for DraftKings. Follow him on Twitter at Reid T. Fowler on Twitter. Reid, one of the things I've noticed about as golf has returned is the fact that it feels like from tournament to tournament, it feels like guys are way more hot and cold than maybe in a regular PGA Tour season. Have you noticed the same thing? Because I feel like, I watched Webb Simpson at the beginning on. He was on fire, and now it feels like Webb Simpson is nowhere to be found. Whereas now all of a sudden, here's Finau coming out of nowhere. Whereas early on, it felt like he was a nobody. So have you noticed the same trend of it's either you're hot or you're incredibly cold?
Yeah, it's a little bit like I've noticed it throughout most PGA seasons, where like golf, right? Then there's that argument, that debate: is it course history? So how well do you play in this course? Like Tiger Woods, a 5-time winner at Memorial and Deerfield Village, or is it current form? So how are these guys playing coming into this tournament? And so talking about the latter in current form, I think when you look at a guy like Webb Simpson, you scratch your head and say, like, well, what's going on here, right? Is it your swing? Is it because we're not there, because we're not in their camp as well? We don't know what he's thinking or what he's experiencing. We can't figure out. So taking that aside and looking at the quantitative data and just the strokes gained part of it in terms of approach, tee to green, putting, you can glean some stuff. For instance, Tony Finau, when you looked at his missed cuts either from Detroit at the Rocket Mortgage or previous, he either missed the cut on the number or just courses didn't necessarily for him, but the tee to green game was absolutely there. It's just with Tony Finau, it's can he make some putts? And you're seeing now at Memorial that he's making putts, and he's actually played this course well in his career. And with Tony Finau as well, we've seen him in majors get top fives and play these strong fields extremely well. So it's like he plays up to his competition. But same thing with John Rahm. The first 3 rounds, especially the first round last week, he was virtually. He couldn't find anything. He was chipping in. He was making these 20-foot putts. But you see in that final round on Sunday last week, he shot an 8 under 64 and gained over 4 strokes or 5 strokes with his irons and not that much with this putter, meaning that the ball striking is there. You just need to continue it on to this round. But I get what you're saying. I'm more of the guy who likes current form and sees these guys when they're hot. Let's ride that heater, as opposed to guys that just play well at this course, because we don't know what their form is. And we're kind of seeing it with Tiger, right, is that there might be some rust there, even though he loves this course. So, yeah, it's like you can kind of tell with, like, guys who are in form that's the guys that you want to go after when you're looking at either these bets or DraftKings.
Do you sense the change in atmosphere at these courses due to COVID impacts the players?
Yeah, I think so. Like even though like they'll not say it potentially, I think it does, right? Especially for a guy like Tiger, Phil, even Roy to an extent, where like the love and the admiration and just the fanfare about these guys, they're used to it. They're used to it from a very early age. If you're a guy like Rory McIlroy or Tiger Woods, you were a child prodigy once you stepped foot on a golf course, and they've gotten the attention from everyone everywhere since the beginning, since junior golf. And so when that goes away, and these guys have mentioned it feels like a junior tournament, that's definitely going to add a different dynamic. When you have the other guys that maybe are more used to like not necessarily caring about it, that doesn't really make a difference. But I think especially for tournaments like the Memorial, like the majors that we're not going to have fans, and I'm glad that the Ryder Cup is going to be postponed, because that tournament, the majority of that excitement and that tournament, and you've heard it from the guys, is because of the fans and the fanfare. And yeah, it definitely makes a difference from week to week, because that's definitely where sometimes they get the energy, especially on the back nine on Sunday.
Reid, before we let you go, I just wanted to ask you about the rest of this weekend. So you mentioned the Saturday showdown. Talk about some of the DraftKings options for people to jump in, because let's be realistic. Outside of golf and a couple other things, there's really not a lot of DFS opportunities right now. So if someone's a DFS person, this is pretty much the best they might got at this point.
Oh, yeah. Even when sports comes back, golf DFS is best. No, I'm obviously partial. I love golf. It's something that I've been doing for a long time. So I love seeing it at the forefront of popularity. But, I mean, if you're just looking at, like you mentioned, what we do, and I just got off, what we do sometimes, too, is we have these Madden simulations where, like, it's the computer playing against the computer, and where it's like they're playing an actual game, and we have DFS, and it's a free roll. It's a free contest that you can enter, and you can watch football. Albeit it's computer and it's a video game. You can watch football where we talk about fantasy football. You guys can ask questions, and it's streamed on YouTube. So we're doing that every single day, six streams a day, starting at 12 p.m. all the way to 10 p.m. at night. But for the most part, if you want to win some money in terms of DraftKings and the PGA Tour, that's where it's at. You got, many different options when it comes to DraftKings for the showdown week. And then obviously, if you can, where you can bet where it's legal on DraftKings Sportsbook, definitely do so, because there's going to be many different ways this tournament that's going to provide a lot of excitement coming down the stretch, especially on Sunday.
Folks can follow you on Twitter for more at Reid T. Fowler, PGA Analyst, DraftKings. Check him out for all your PGA Tour coverage, and all guests. Reid appeared today on the Boardwalk Kind of Hotline. Reid, appreciate the time and you joining us today on a Friday.
Thanks. Take care.